What's up everyone, hope you good. Welcome to my channel. All creepy and mysterious. Hope you love it here. Today's story prove exactly why clowns have a bad reputation. Give us a thumbs up as a support. And with no further ado, let's get started. John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, was one of America's most notorious serial killers. His crimes shocked the nation and left a lasting impact on the criminal justice system. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He had a troubled childhood, marked by a difficult relationship with his abusive father. Despite these challenges, Gacy managed to build a seemingly normal life. He married Marlyn Myers in 1964. Together they had 2 children and moved to Waterloo, Iowa, where he managed a KFC restaurant owned by his father-in-law. However, his dark tendencies began to surface. In 1968, Gacy was convicted of sexually assaulting a teenage boy in Waterloo. He lured the boy with the promise of a job, then assaulted him, which led to Marlyn filing for divorce and gaining custody of their children during his incarceration. After his release from prison, Gacy moved back to Chicago. For this crime, Gacy was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but served only 18 months. After his release in 1970, he returned to Chicago, started his construction business, PDM Contractors, in 1971. The business initially focused on minor repair work, but later expanded to include interior design, remodeling, and landscaping. Gacy became an active community member and even got involved in local politics, offering the labor services of his PDM employees free of charge. Gacy's involvement with the Jolly Joker Clown Club began in the mid-1970s. He created his own clown persona, Pogo the Clown, and performed at local parties, charitable events, and parades. This was a way for him to further integrate into the community and gain trust, all while hiding his darker activities. His construction business continued to operate alongside his clown performances, and he used the promise of jobs at PDM Contractors to lure many of his victims. The dual life he led as a businessman and a clown allowed him to maintain a facade of normalcy while committing his heinous crimes. In 1972, he married his second wife, Carol Hoff. Carol was unaware of Gacy's dark side, even living in the same house where many of his murders occurred. Carol divorced him in 1976. While she didn't know the full extent of his crimes, she did notice some troubling signs. Hoff began to smell strong, decaying odors around their home and occasionally saw Gacy descending into their crawlspace with bags of lime. She also found wallets belonging to young men hidden away. Despite these red flags, she didn't fully grasp what he was up to until after his arrest. Gacy managed to hide his activities from her, committing many of his murders while she was living in the same house. After the divorce, Gacy referred to the following years as his cruising years, during which he committed the majority of his murders. Gacy committed his first known murder in 1972. He lured a young man to his home, where he handcuffed, tortured, and strangled him. He buried the body in the crawl space of his house. Gacy's second known murder took place in 1974, following a similar pattern of luring, torturing, and killing the victim. He continued this horrifying cycle, ultimately murdering at least 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978. The investigation into John Wayne Gacy's crimes began with the disappearance of 15-year-old Robert Piest in December 1978. Piest had told his mother he was going to meet a contractor about a potential job, and that contractor was John Wayne Gacy. When Piest didn't return home, his parents contacted the police, who quickly identified Gacy as a suspect due to his previous criminal record for sexually abusing a teenage boy. Authorities executed a search warrant at Gacy's home on December 13, 1978. During the search, they found several alarming items, including shackles, handcuffs, and a high school class ring with the initials JS, which did not belong to Gacy. They also discovered a receipt for a roll of film from Nissan Pharmacy, which was linked to Robert Piest. Further forensic tests on the receipt confirmed that Piest had been in Gacy's home. Additionally, hair samples found in Gacy's car matched Piest's hair. These pieces of evidence combined with Gacy's inconsistent statements and suspicious behavior, led authorities to believe he was responsible for Piast's disappearance. Police placed Gacy under surveillance and conducted intensive interrogation sessions. During this period, a friend of Gacy's who was grilled with a polygraph shared critical information that necessitated further investigation. John Wayne Gacy confided in a friend and co-worker, hinting that he had indeed committed murder. Gacy told his friend that he had killed approximately 30 people because they were bad and trying to blackmail him. This revelation came just a day before Gacy's arrest and provided critical information to the police. Armed with the new information, investigators secured a second search warrant. This more thorough search led them to discover human remains in the crawl space of Gacy's house. As the evidence mounted, Gacy eventually confessed to killing approximately 25 to 30 young men and boys. He described his methods and pointed out where he had buried most of the bodies. Police began the grim task of carefully excavating the crawl space, uncovering numerous bodies. They continued searching other parts of Gacy's property and locations linked to him, finding more remains. Gacy was charged with multiple counts of murder. His trial began in February 1980. Despite claiming insanity, he was found guilty on all counts. He was ultimately convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys and was sentenced to death. He developed an interest in painting after being given an art set to use while jailed. Between that moment and his execution, he produced a huge range of work. Self-portraits, other infamous criminals like Charles Manson and Ed Gein, tranquil scenes of nature, others featured Disney characters like the Seven Dwarfs, and he painted a portrait of Elvis Presley too. Why did he do it? He was quoted as saying he wanted to bring joy to people's lives, but he was happy to sell his clumsy works to fans for $300 direct from his prison cell. Selling his clumsy S work to clumsy S fans, that's what it is, you piece of garbage. In September 1989, Dolores Nida, mum of Gacy victim John Mowry. John Anthony Mowry was one of Gacy's victims. He was only 19 years old and had recently returned to Chicago after completing 18 months with the Marines. Gacy lured Mowry to his home on September 25, 1977. Mowry was never seen alive again, and his remains were later discovered in Gacy's crawl space. John's mum was a guest on an episode of Geraldo, where she shared in painful detail how upset she was that Gacy was given access to art materials, and that there was such a lucrative market for his work. Seething with anger, she says, Gacy is given art supplies to do drawings which are sold. As a matter of fact, one of his paintings was put into the Art Institute in Chicago. Dolores recalls that she called the governor's office to complain that some of Gacy's drawings were being sold at the Illinois State Fair. An aide was dispatched to confiscate them, but by the time they arrived there, they had all sold. She hated it, and she said she doesn't want him alive. Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. In June 1994, less a month after Gacy was executed, there was a mass burning of some of his artworks outside James Quick Auctioneers in Naperville. Hope you like it. Please let us know if you have any stories or events you want to share, and we will do it for you. Show us your support and feedback in the comments. See you guys later.